So far we've been focusing on the customer and basically how the customer responds to our pricing and us figuring out how they do it. The next part is competition, and that competition affects how we price things for the simple reason is we need to respond to what they do. Now, what pricing allows us to do is, especially for our new products, is how do we defend ourselves? You want to set the pricing in such a way that it discourages other people from coming in after you, or that your pricing is so unique and different that they won't respond to it. What barriers of entry can you create? And also switching costs, and that's that you don't want them moving away from you. And so one could be that your pricing is friendly enough that they don't want to. These are the questions you ask in defending your products. I mean, how are they going to respond to us? Are their price points segregated? And what I mean by segregated price points, it's just like Toyota cars. You have a low price, which is the Corolla. You have mid-price, which is the Camry, and then you got the high-end, which is your Lexuses. And so the thing you see about, especially with big corporations, is they have multiple products that cover the entire price range. And so the question is in price tiers, how should you attack? If within the same tier, it gets pretty fierce. Why? Because you're pretty much the same thing. The asymmetric effect is that the upper tier sell to a lower tier, but not the other way around. You can't have a Hyundai compete with a BMW, but you can have a BMW make a cheap version and compete against a Hyundai. And then price decreases in high-tier products tend to increase sales in other categories. Price leadership or coordination versus price war. What is it that you want? And so in matching a price drop, should I match it? Actually, if you only match 7% compared to the 10% of their cut, then people in general view that as pretty much the same. The landscape impacts how companies respond. Essentially things like brand value, elasticity, substitutes, complements, they all go into it in terms of response factors for the competition that you can respond in multiple ways. In terms of responding to competition, you want to try to do it in a way that you don't damage yourself. Differentiation, market participation, those are the price characteristics that you want to come through, so you're not directly competing. The other thing about when you change prices, are you tipping off the competition on things that you're doing? And so some examples of price competition is if U.S. Airways cuts its prices, should Southwest? Well, in general, no, because Southwest says we don't have sales. We're always the low-cost carrier. On the other hand, for United or American, or I don't know who owns who right now, they're direct competitors. So yes, you have to respond. Walmart drops prices online. Does Amazon? No, because again, Amazon has established itself as unique and different than everybody else. They always have the lowest prices. If Apple decides to cut its price on its phone, should Samsung? Well, again, Samsung is the low-cost provider. They shouldn't respond in that way. So to you, in terms of a company, how do you handle price changes? And that's that, do you have the infrastructure to respond? Do you have the money to handle a big fight? And a good example is like Anheuser-Busch. In order to make sure that light beer got out there, they had the resources to take 5 years of losses just to get market share. And in terms of your marketing team, you have to start thinking about how are we going to formulate a response. This is the thing what companies do when they see price changes. In terms of collaborators, you have to think about how much do resellers and partners play in your chain. Are they loyal to you? How critical is their support? And what role are they going to play in your response? For example, if I sell through Walmart, how is Walmart going to respond to price changes? Are they going to stay pat or are they going to make changes? The next aspect and fifth of the 5 C's is context. And so for example, global events can affect what happens to pricing. And that said, what if there's a perception there's going to be a shortage? Yeah, there's your opportunity to basically raise prices. Do environmental effects affect you? Are you volatile to such things as like fashion? And is there a potential regulatory change? For example, people in the cannabis business are just waiting for states to decriminalize, and they're going to jump in. Here's examples of different economic behaviors. Some of them we've already talked about, like the fairness effect. There's a switching cost effect, that if it costs a lot to switch, then you're more likely not going to. The share cost effect, meaning you're willing to pay more if you can share the cost with someone else, and that's that you just view it as less of a risk. And so in the next lecture, I'll talk about the different kinds of techniques that people use in pricing.